Good evening. Welcome to the board meeting for March 23rd, 2021, the special meeting to conduct interviews of prospective candidates and to elect a new school board member. Welcome, Deborah. Welcome to this process. I'd like to introduce the board members. I'll have each of them say hello to you. We have three of us are present in the room and the rest are online, so I am Ed Brown.
Hi, Deborah. I'm Gina Curry. Hi, Deborah. Rachel Mitchell.
Hi, Deborah. This is Neil Desnoyers. Thank you for applying for the vacancy.
Hi, Deborah. This is Damian Warsavage. A pleasure to meet you this evening.
Good evening, Ms. Williams. This is David Neal, School Board Director.
Hi, Ms. Williams. Thank you so much for applying. It's nice to meet you. My name is Meredith Haig.
Hello, Ms. Williams. This is Don Fields. Thank you for having the courage to apply and step up into this process.
All right, now we'll talk about the explanation of the time commitment for board members. The applicant selected for the vacant board position will be fulfilling the unexpired term until the first Monday of December 2021. The time commitment includes monthly board meetings, like this one, generally falling on the second Tuesday of each month. Monthly committee meetings generally falling on the fourth Tuesday of each month for the following: the Education and Pupil Services Committee, the Finance and Operations Committee, liaison assignments, and school board professional development. And I think my colleagues would say other duties as assigned, so it's never quite that simple. Okay, so now we'll have an explanation of the procedures and the guidelines for tonight. The interview will begin with an opportunity for the applicant to make an opening statement that is up to 3 minutes long. During the interview, each board member will ask one question of the applicant. After the questions, there will be a period for the board members to ask clarifying or follow-up questions related solely to an applicant's previous responses. Public comment will take place prior to the vote. So the order of the interviews, you're going to be first and you're going to be last. We will now begin the interview process.
Good evening, and thank you for all the introductions. I think I've met most of you in the room already before, but thank you. So again, my name is Debra Williams. I've lived in Upper Darby School District for the last 21 years in Lansdowne. I have a son who currently attends Upper Darby High School as a senior, and it's been an honor to watch him learn and grow here in this school district as a parent, from the kindergarten center where he had Mrs. DeSantis, all the way up until now where his only teacher is currently Ms. Banglian, who he absolutely adores. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details from my resume because, again, I think you can just see that on the screen. You have that in front of you. But I will tell you that I'm honored to sit here before all of you in this room here today. And for you to consider me for this position to serve in this community is also an honor, so thank you. I'm sure I'll have a chance to delve a bit more into speaking about myself, my views on education, etc. this evening. But what I do want to tell you is that I truly do have a heart for students. I do enjoy speaking with parents, not just in this district, but in our community in general, especially those who are not from the U.S., and who need assistance navigating the entry process into the school system and figuring out some of the challenges of using digital learning platforms. I believe in an equitable education for all students. All children, I believe, deserve to learn with excellent teaching and a safe environment with the best resources, so including curriculum and facilities. And I just want to be a part of that process. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement. Okay, Mr. Desnoyers, thank you again for making sure we got our opening statement from Deborah in. The first question is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, President Brown. So, Ms. Williams, my question is as follows. Please give us a brief description of your background. I look forward to hearing that.
You have my resume, but again, I do have some experience with nonprofit work, with finance work and education, and working with people from many different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, as I kind of alluded to there. but I'm just confident that those experiences will lend a hand with working as a school board director. So I do have some teaching experiences. I've taught as a substitute teacher probably in, I think, 9 of our elementary schools just in Upper Darby School District. But I've subbed in probably 8 of local school districts in Pennsylvania here. So that's just a little bit of my background. I've worked for 18 years in a nonprofit industry doing HR work and some program management work. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, but you can ask me any follow-up questions you need to about that.
Thank you very much for your response.
You're welcome.
At this time, I don't have any follow-up questions.
Thank you, Mr. Desnoyers. Dr. Haig, I think you had the second question.
Thank you, President Brown. Ms. Williams, can you tell us why you would like to join the school board?
I can. I think I want to join the school board to serve as a listening ear for our community and to just foster positive change. I like a quote that Bill Nye has. He says, everyone you meet, everyone that you ever meet knows something that you don't. And so I think I always carry that and remember that. So I think hopefully as you get to know me, if I have this opportunity to serve, you'll see that in some meetings, I'm not always the most vocal person at first. And I think that's because I spend more time listening first than speaking. I consider myself to be a strategic thinker, an executor, a learner, someone that's pretty deliberate, focused, and disciplined. I try to choose my words very carefully as not to offend, but I also like to get my point across and to be heard. And I think I'll fit as needed, but I hope to learn from others along the journey. So I think part of that could carry me pretty far as a board member.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the question, but you already answered it in your introduction. But I just remember the first time I met you when I was volunteering at InterServe. And then I saw you a bunch of times around the district after that. So how long have you been a resident? You can repeat it.
It's fine. I've been a resident of this township for 21 years.
Thank you so much for your response, Deborah.
You're welcome.
Mr. Neal, I think you have the next question.
Thank you, President Brown. Good evening again, Ms. Williams. My question for you tonight is how do you view your role as a school board member for the Upper Darby School District?
So I think maybe I alluded to this a little bit before, but I view my role, I think first and foremost, I'm a parent right now, foremost, and so I think I'm going to be that first in how I view things as a community member, as a leader, as an advocate, and again, as a listener. So I want to be a voice for people that don't have a voice. And I like making policy. So I think that's just part of my background. And so I think, again, as a parent, a leader, an advocate, a thinker, so I want to be part of a community of thinkers, of learners, and just executing things. So I think everyone has a role and everyone has a gift, and just how we use those gifts and how we can work together to get things done. I think that's how I see my role.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. As a side note, I love Bill Nye. He's great. I used to watch him all the time growing up. Fascinating man. So I appreciate you bringing up and quoting him.
I love him too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Mr. Fields, I believe you had the next question, sir.
Thank you, President Brown. Ms. Williams, it's a pleasure to meet you, even if it's virtually. I look forward to, in the future, meeting you in person at some point. Our question here is, are you familiar with how our school district operates?
Okay, I'm very familiar with school district structure. I work in one in an administration building. So there is a hierarchical structure. Superintendent has a cabinet. Usually curriculum falls under there, technology, business office, maintenance, pupil services, HR, however many departments work under there, public safety, et cetera. And then, of course, the superintendent works alongside the board here. Yeah, but I've had a wonderful experience working with home and school, after prom, a bunch of other different committees in Upper Darby since my son's been in kindergarten and up until now. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry it was less clear.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Mr. Warsavage, I believe the next question is yours, sir.
Thank you, President Brown. And thank you once again, Ms. Williams, for joining us in this process. You mentioned earlier that your son has a connection to Barb Benglian, and she is one of my personal heroes as well. So he's definitely in good company. Question I have for you this evening, and I know you touched on it already, was if you could give some more detail. What has been some of your more personal involvement with education in our community? Maybe some of the more memorable moments that you've had involved in that.
Memorable moments in education. I think probably my volunteer experiences working in the district. As I probably just mentioned a second ago, I have worked, I won't even say work because I think it's a service. And so I've served on home and school since my son has been in the district. I've worked district home and school as well as home and schools from elementary school to Beverly Hills Middle School. And again, I've done after prom, and I think it's been an honor to do the district home and school and do the parents as leaders with the diversity team, which is where I actually met Ms. Dawes. So that was an honor to work and serve alongside her. So I think that's been a memorable experience for me in education, but also teaching. I'm finishing up a master's degree in curriculum and instruction now, and finishing up my teacher certification now to work into the classroom again. So I love working with students, elementary children especially, and I do have a heart for English language learners, and I love working with students from immigrant backgrounds. So I hope that answers your question. If you want me to expound on that a little bit more, I can.
Well, that was a perfect answer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Warsavage. Vice President Kerry, I think you have the next question.
Hi, Ms. Williams. So good to see you. What special, and I'm glad you're here, what special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the district and the school board? I know you talked a lot about it in your bio, but I know there's some extras there, so if you could dig deep to let us know, what talents do you think you would bring to us?
Yes, so I think I probably pointed out on my resume, I try to target some key skills that I think I bring, but I think interpersonal communication. Yeah, I think I'm a pretty focused person. I like to try to bring a group back together when I think they're kind of moving off task with something in a group setting. And again, I think one of my highest things, I'm a lifelong learner, so I like to learn from other people. But also I'm an achiever, so I think those are kind of my top things. And then just to get things done. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think the final Jeopardy question belongs to me. What do you feel is the #1 challenge facing our schools today?
This one's easy. I think it's a lack of parent involvement. I think we could see real change in our school district with more parent involvement. I think it'll help boost student achievement and morale, and I think it helps tremendously in a classroom with behavior, discipline issues, and it could help teachers go a long way. So, I mean, I've talked to many people about this, and I know they think it's finances, but I do not. So.
Interesting. Unique perspective. Most people automatically jump on finances, so I can understand you're saying the parent involvement piece, because I understand how you attack the Parent as Leaders workshop that I was fortunate enough to serve with you. So I remember how important that was to you. So I understand that answer.
Yes.
I think that's all the questions we have. Do we have any follow-up questions from our board based on any of the answers you heard for any of the questions?
President Brown, this is Neil Desnoyers, just confirming that I do not have any follow-up questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yes.
I just wanted to ask you, as you apply for this position, and you know some of us here on the board probably from your involvement, do you understand the detailed schedule of being committed? I know you have other commitments. Do you know that sometimes when there are things that arise in the district that need immediate attention, and are you aware and ready to commit to that type of involvement?
I am aware of the commitment it takes, and so I think, as an ode to a dear friend of mine that just passed away on Saturday at Interserve, actually, our kind of saying at Interserve was flexibility is our middle name, and so that has stuck with me, and so that's something I live by. And so when duty calls, you kind of have to fill in, and so I see my role on the board as service, and so not work. And so that's kind of how I always have seen my role, work is service. Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. I really like that, being a server.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Vice President Kerry. Are there any other questions, clarifying questions from board members?
I did want, just for the public, if you could just skip back to the explanation of the process, just so the public knows when the position came vacant and the when we advertised it, especially since we only have one applicant tonight. I just want to make sure the public is aware that we did follow our process.
The vacancy of the school board director position occurred on March 6, 2021. As per policy 004, Bog 1, filing of the vacancy, the board has 30 days to fill the vacancy. The advertisement for the vacancy was placed in the Delaware County Times on March 10, 2021. The deadline for submissions for applicants was noon on March 19, 2021. And Mr. Rogers, I think Ms. Williams was the only applicant to fulfill that.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Thank you for that. I think that was important for the public to hear.
Director Warsavage has a question or a comment.
Certainly. Mr. Warsavage, please.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, I just want to piggyback on something that you shared with us earlier, and also a connection to, again, Barb Benglian. I'm sure that you've heard her saying of always raising that bar of excellence. And you did point out something rather interesting in what President Brown observed as a different way of looking at what the biggest challenge in your view was to our school system today, which was parent involvement. My ultimate follow-up question would be, how would you, with your familiarity with also how a school district is structured, and you having been a parent here and so involved in your experience with even another school district, how would you specifically raise our bar of excellence as a school district, as a school board, in your unique way?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your comment and for your question, actually. I was actually reviewing the comprehensive plan before I came here. So first, if I can make a comment, because I wanted to applaud the efforts of this board and Dr. McGarry on what has been accomplished over the last few years. And I've seen a diligent effort on one of those four pillars to increase the communication district-wide. So first, I wanted to give my hats off to Ms. Aranda Buford over there And I just wanted to say that because I think it's rare for a day to go by where I don't see some form of district-wide communication that hits my Gmail account or doesn't hit my voicemail and it comes directly to my phone while I'm sitting at my desk at work or something's pinging on my phone. So I think that has gone a long way to reach parents. And so I think more parents are apt to be involved in this district if they're hearing from the district. And so I just wanted to say that. So I feel more informed than I have in years. And so I can also read about what's happening in our district on our website or on a Twitter account, and it's positive news, it's not negative news. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. So I think I can give you a nod for keeping parents informed about curriculum updates and things like that as well, because I think that's important. So Mr. Worsavage, to answer your question, I think it's a positive step in the right direction. And so if you look back and you look at your objectives of what you set out to do over the last couple years from 2018 until the end of this school year, if you're reaching your goals and reaching your objectives and parents are looking at, okay, they're doing what they set out to do, I think you can get more parents involved. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for the great clarifying questions, Vice President Curry, Mrs. Mitchell, and Mr. Worsavage. Are there any others?
Yes, Mr. President, David Neal.
Please.
This question's actually for Mr. Rogers. I was just curious, were there any other applications received after the deadline?
No, there were not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other clarifying questions from the board?
President Brown, I do not see any more questions from the board.
Thank you, Ms. Beaufort. So I think we're going to conclude this portion of the interview. Thank you very much, Ms. Williams, for your diligent answers to all of the questions, and thank you very much for being willing to be a part of this process. So I've been in your shoes, and it's never easy to be held to this kind of scrutiny, but it is rewarding. So thank you for at least willing to be a part of this process. Our first order of business for this portion of the meeting is the nomination and election of a new board member. I will entertain nominations.
Mr. Brown, I have a nomination. I'd like to nominate Ms. Debra Williams for the position of school director for the Upper Darby School Board.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Is there a second?
Don Fields, I second that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fields. I have a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close nominations?
I motion to close
Go
nominations. This
Okay.
is Gina.
Thank you, Vice President Curry. Do we have a second to close the nominations?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to close nominations. All those in favor of closing nominations signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Nominations are closed. Before we take a vote on the nominations, are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none. Ms. Beaufort, are there any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public for this special voting meeting.
Thank you. We will now vote for the position of director of the Upper Darby School Board. The nominee is Debra Williams. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. The motion carries. Debra Williams is a school board director.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think I did say motion carried. Just want to make sure. The next order of business is to administer the oath of office to the elected board member, Debra Williams. Debra Williams has been elected to fill the vacant school board director position on the Upper Darby School Board to serve a term which ends on the first Monday of December 2021. Ms. Williams, will you please come forward? place your right hand on the Bible and repeat after me. I, Debra Williams,
I, Debra Williams,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank
you are a school
you.
board. Congratulations, Deborah. I think you have some order of business over here. I think you need to sign some paperwork. You have to sign the oath and have it notarized by Miss Anthony. All done? That was fast. Okay, Mr. Fields, I think you had a, who was it, Mr. Fields? Yes, Mr. Fields, I think you had a comment or a question you wanted to ask after the vote.
Yeah, just a comment and some praise. Thank you, Board President Brown. I just wanted to get on the record that Ms. Williams has probably one of the better resumes I've seen in applications to serve on the school board, and she was our only applicant. Yes, we didn't, and there was not anybody else to interview. That is correct, but she still interviewed and came prepared to answer questions, which I thought was great. And I definitely think that the work she's done in her life to this point, given from her cover letter and from her resume, supports her being appointed to the school board. And I for one, I'm very excited and happy to have her on the board. I think anybody can serve on the board. Those with a background in education have a short learning curve to serving effectively on the board. And we have a number of people with backgrounds in education on this board, and I'm very happy to have another one on the board as well. And so again, congratulations, Ms. Williams. Again, I look forward to meeting you in person, and I'm very happy to have you on the board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Fields, for that. Any other questions or any other comments from the board?
Director Desnoyers has a comment.
Certainly.
Yes, President Brown. Ms. Williams, I would just like to thank you for volunteering to give of your time to serve on the board. I would like to congratulate you on your election to the board, and I also would like to say that I look forward to serving with you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I look forward to serving with you as well.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Desnoyers. Any other comments from the board? Vice President Curry.
Ms. Williams, School Board Director Williams. It's really good to have you, and I'm thankful that you stepped up and applied in the loss of Leah Dawes, as you mentioned, that she was our friend. And I look forward to working with you in fulfilling her legacy of the things that we were working on here. And I really appreciate time and commitment, because this definitely is time and commitment, and it's fulfilling to see the change that you talked about while you were answering the questions. And I've seen you do so much here in the district and be an involved parent. So I'm really happy to have you to work with us, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I look forward to it as well.
And I'll just echo some of that. Most are going to have the pleasure of getting to know you. I know you pretty well. I've had the pleasure of serving with you on a number of endeavors in the district. So I'm excited about everybody getting to know you and see what I already know and understand what I already know. So congratulations, and I look forward to you being on our team. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Moved.
So moved. David Neal.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. The Finance and Operations Committee virtual meeting for March 23rd, 2021 will please come to order. I will now turn over the Finance and Operations Committee meeting to co-chair Mr. Fields.
Mr. Rogers, I believe you have some math for us tonight. Could you please begin with an overview of your agenda items for this evening?
Absolutely. Tonight we have one agenda item, and we're going to discuss the possibility of a 2021 bond issuance, which I'll be asking the board to authorize administration to move forward with the process to start exploring a possible bond issuance in the year of 2021. And if you'd like, we can jump right into the presentation.
Go right ahead. Thank you very much.
So as I just stated, this presentation is to discuss the opportunity of potentially issuing a bond in the calendar year 2021. So we're just going to quickly run through the reasoning behind the bond issuance, the potential capital projects that will be impacted by this. Again, the historically low interest rates that we've been discussing over the past year or so, and next steps. So first off, we'll run through just a couple of the potential projects, and each of these are subject to change depending on the needs and availability of funds. So first, we have the Aronimink Elementary renovation and addition, the Clifton Heights Middle School project, the exploration and design of a potential new elementary school, various summer projects that we've been doing over the past few summers. Some examples are parking lots, roofing, and pointing of buildings. Along with those summer projects, we've been completing toilet renovations. In the following this summer, we would be looking at Phase 2 of the Beverly Hills Middle School project. Phase 1 would be done this summer. And then also a potential elementary school having a bathroom project completed as well. And that's where we would need the funds or proceeds from a 2021 bond issuance. So the reason for bringing this conversation back up, not only because of the projects and needs for funds to complete those projects, but as we issued the 2020 bond, we had experienced a historical low in interest rates, and we still see those interest rates at an all-time low. They're going up slightly, so this is actually a look back for many years, 34 years here, that you can see how low we are on the right-hand side in that red box. The interest rates have plummeted. This is zoomed in a little bit, going back to 2019, so about a 2-year look back, and you can see in that purple box, the left-hand side of that purple box is actually almost right on where the interest rate was when we issued the 2020 bond, and you can see a slight spike, and we're really looking at just basis points, so it's not huge, it's not multiple interest points, it's really basis points, meaning fractions of a full interest portion. So I will note these are 10-year averages. We've typically issued bonds on 20-25-year rates, so those bonds similar to a mortgage. If you were to mortgage a 10-year mortgage versus 15 or a 30-year mortgage, the rates typically go up the longer you go out, because the longer you have a debt issuance, there's a little bit more risk associated with, and the banks evaluate that risk and then offer a slightly higher interest rate. So this is good news for us. I'd like to move a little bit quicker and try and take advantage of the low interest rates. Like I said, in the past month or so, they've gone up slightly. There's not enough data there to show the true trend of where they're going in the near future. But in typical financing, when you're at an all-time low, there's typically only one way to really go up, and we've gotten pretty close to, we're talking about sub 1% interest rates, as example by, our recent bond refinancing, where we're at 0.7%. So there's not really any direction to go but up in this case. I'm hoping that they stay stable enough that we can take advantage again of a very low interest rate and make up for some of the lost funds that we didn't get to build into that full 2020 bond issuance. So the next steps here are really create a feasible schedule with PFM and RBC, who are our financial advisors. Here are some of the mile markers. They're not all here. Otherwise, we'd have quite a long slide. But the main ones the board would be aware of is going through the process of the board approving a max parameters resolution, which would set the maximum amount of funds that we would issue in the bond. And prior to that, obviously, we would do our due diligence as a district to make sure we are evaluating how much we need in this bond issuance. Next would be a Moody's rating agency interview where they have a call with myself and our finance team, and we discuss the financial outlook of the district, and then they come back and they offer us a credit opinion. After that, we would go through a pricing and rate lock and then settlement. And I know that in the past, I've always equated it to, on a personal side, when you go through purchasing a home and going through the mortgage process, it's not far off. Luckily, when you're purchasing a home, you're not being interviewed by Moody's. But that would be similar to you getting your FICO credit score read back by your mortgage company. But those are the basic steps as we move forward. So really tonight, I'm just asking that the board allow the district administration to move forward in this process, continue to do our due diligence, and move towards that next mile marker of a max parameter resolution. And I'll take any questions from the board at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. I believe Dr. Haig has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Yes, and thank you, Mr. Rogers, for another very clear presentation. I wanted to ask about the recent federal stimulus funds. We know a fair amount of money, or at least I understand a fair amount of money is coming our way, and I was wondering if you could say a little bit about how that is affecting our decision making in terms of the bonds and in terms of capital projects.
So all ESSER funding aside, and I believe you're referring to the ESSER funding 1, 2, and Phase 3 now, which has become quite a substantial amount of one-time money. We are going through our process of deciding how to best utilize those funds on what would be considered one-time costs. There aren't many that actually really exist that are one-time costs, but when we say that, we're trying to layer them into very long-term purchases. So we're evaluating the learning loss gap, and how can we use those funds to make up for that learning loss. That's the utmost of importance when you're discussing these funds, because the funds are coming from the COVID pandemic, and also causing the learning loss. So if those funds are meant to truly be used to close the learning gap, once we get beyond that and are satisfied where we think our needs are, we've now moved into other areas, and in that also we are looking at curriculum and different creative ways to use the funds to improve the schools. On top of that, we've now, because of ESSER 3, we're really starting to get to a point where it's time we're going to be able to start looking at infrastructure. One of the major portions of ESSER is to look at your air quality and COVID mitigation factors. So we do plan, and we are in the process of evaluating, our HVAC systems and see where the need is throughout the district. Compile proposals, a plan, and be able to bring that to the board in the near future, so that we can use those funds to improve the HVAC systems. And actually that folds into our multi-year capital improvement plan. So something that may have been on the capital improvement plan to replace an HVAC system, say at the high school, now what would have likely been part of this bond or a future bond, we can shift and start using the ESSER funds to be able to not have to issue the debt on that. But that also gives the district the flexibility to focus on the building projects that we have been pushing forward in this process.
Thanks, Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. You listed a few projects that are likely to be funded with any bond issuance. I just wanted to confirm that the work that the board will authorize you to move forward with will result in a more detailed will result in more detailed information from the board as far as an idea how much these various projects may cost, and therefore justify the bond issuance you request, the amount of bond issuance you request.
Yeah, so when we get to that point, you would absolutely be made aware of the budget and the items that would be included in said budget for the bond issuance, similar to the process that was completed for the 2020 bond. Just a note as well, you have to provide the rating agencies and the investors who would be secure or issuing the bond how you're going to spend the money, and there's requirements of how much has to be spent percentage-wise within certain timelines. So you know, part of this is our 2020 bond did not include the cost of the entire project of Aronimink. The reason for that was the appeal that was open on that project didn't give us enough certainty to issue a full amount of the project in that bond. So immediately when I say the Aronimink renovation and addition is included in this bond, it's to make up for the difference that wasn't justified in the last bond. If you recall, the 2020 bond could have been a significantly higher bond issuance, and we had to draw back a little bit because at the time the uncertainty surrounding the appeal on Aronimink was not advisable to issue a bond for a project that was under appeal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogers. I personally am very glad the appeal on the Aronimink project is behind us and that project can move forward.
My question, Mr. Rogers, is I know you typically will present a more thorough explanation of all the finances regarding that, and I was wondering if you could include the previous bond issuances of 2020, what the max parameter was, and then how much we ended up actually taking out. If that just could be included with that presentation at a later date.
So I believe that was included in the October 20.
Was it?
Okay. I want to say it was the 23rd committee meeting, but off the top of my head, the max parameters was somewhere around $38 million, and we issued a bond for around $26 million. With the par that was involved there, we ended up receiving cash at upwards of $30 million, but that had to do with the way that the bond was structured. So we were, I think when we did the math, we were like $8 to $9 million under the max parameters. But we can revisit at any time.
Yeah. Could you revisit, just because in terms of tax increases, millage increases, you know, we usually go, okay, this is what the max would be, and then this is what the actual was. I think as we talk for the 2021 bond issuance, I think it would be important to reflect on the 2020.
So as we move forward in that first step, the max parameters resolution, we typically will have another committee meeting where we bring forward from PFM a breakdown of what we call the millage requirements study. I think that's what you're referring to, and it shows the impact of that bond on top of the already existing debt issuance. So that would be the next step, you know, going forward. If the board were to, you know, give authorization tonight to move forward with this process, there will be a presentation discussing, you know, the impact to the millage, and as you've seen in the past. But this is really the first step. So I think you're referring to what would be our next step.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Yeah, I think I'm just jumping the gun a little bit on that, but I appreciate all the work that you do in regards to the finances. It's a monster of a project, and your effort is not unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Neal. I want to say I do appreciate the effort into, and I'll get to Dr. McGarry in a second, but I do appreciate the effort into long-term purchases for long-term items and not committing to recurring costs and I'm speaking towards the grant money that'll be coming in. I appreciate the efforts that the district takes in finding the best way and the most effective way and way to spend this money. So I do appreciate that. Dr. McGarry has a comment.
Yes, Craig Rogers, can you go to the slide that says potential capital projects? I think, you know, for me, I think it'll be important if we just, again, to David Neal's comment and to your explanation, your thorough explanation, if we go back in time, which I don't want to have revisionist history, we could have been in a different place. There were questions historically over this team's desire to build schools and do capital project improvements and what the cost would be to taxpayers. And Craig, over time, you've really well explained that, you know, the pandemic has provided a lot of barriers to certain aspects. none more so than some of the community pushback to see these projects forward. And we're happy to be in a place now where we're moving forward. With that said, under your leadership, we had an opportunity, and you went out and you pushed us in a conservative way to do our first bond issuance that came in at very low interest rates and at a considerable savings. The problem before us now is because that we were trying to initiate that with the most optimistic conversations, that we'd be in a place right now where Aronimink would be more than halfway in completion. And unfortunately, it was delayed by a considerable amount of time. At that same time, as a superintendent, I think it's important as a board, as a team, and Ms. Williams, on your first night, this is important for you as well. There are a lot of projects, a lot of plates that spin at the same time in Upper Darby. And we need to be aware of, on this list, bullet point number 3, we're starting a new process, which is the consideration of exploring a school on Carrington Field. That was not in the original bond issuance and the original conversation. So as board members, you know, through the borrowing and through the bond, that, as Craig has explained historically, the bond issuance allows to cover some of those legal costs and the cost of exploring that potential site. That wasn't in the original bond issuance. So what Craig has presented tonight is, you know, we had that money for some of the work that we creatively try to continue to use with financially the legal fees involved in Clifton Heights that can be covering some of those fees, but also the potential for future projects. Moving forward with the Beverly Hills Middle School project, potentially Bywood Elementary School getting new bathroom projects. So as we've said every year, we're going to continue to borrow at least $5 million in capital improvements above and beyond new construction. And what Craig has explained here is, in a very artful business manager way, he's saying, and just so you know, you're also asking me to look at building another new elementary school and other capital improvements, and that will require us to borrow money. And so we may want to consider the totality of these projects, lining them up in a timeline, but also as if you can go a couple more slides ahead, Craig. You know, Craig is also saying to us, historically low interest rates. You know, we don't know how long this is going to last. So one of the things we knew that we're now through an obstacle, which was some of the pushback on Aronimink. You know, some of these other projects, we hope that they do not provide the same barriers, and as a result, borrowing money at lower interest rates, maybe more money at lower interest rates, would be a benefit to the school district, and capitalizing on that like we could have and tried to when we had these other projects. I can't imagine how much money we would have saved if we could have capitalized on the Clifton Heights project and borrowing that money at the same exact time with these historically low interest rates. And it's important as a board, it's important as administrators, and with Ms. Buford, we continue to tell the public every day, every week, every month that goes by that we're fighting to build a new middle school in Clifton Heights. We're hurting kids and the potential cost savings of building that school now.
Thank you very much, Dr. McGarry. I also want to, you mentioned, and I want to reiterate that, as you said, there are legal fees, and we have to pay these legal fees for some of the fighting that's going on. That is, realistically, in the end, we're going to build a school. And so I think there are plenty of members of the public that don't want us to borrow money to pay legal fees for what are essentially time-wasting legal maneuvers. So the quicker we get the legal process completed, by which we mean the quicker that people decide to just come to the table and, you know, discuss and complete these topics, the quicker we can stop borrowing money to pay for legal fees and we can start building, right? So that also should be noted as well. Let's see here. I don't think I have any more comments. So I'm going to ask Mr. Rogers to, let me ask, are there any public comments? I'm sorry. And then we'll review the agenda.
Director Fields, there are no public comments.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rogers, will you review the agenda items presented this evening?
Sure. We had one agenda item this evening to review the potential issuing of 2021 bond issuance that I would like to ask the board to move forward so that we can continue our due diligence and move into the next phase of the process.
Okay. I think asking to move it forward, yeah, sounds good to me. I think asking to move it forward is Board Board President Brown's job, so I'm trying to throw it over to him.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. Fields. Is everyone comfortable moving this forward?
Yes.
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 Okay, I think we have consensus, Mr. Fields. A motion is in order for the adjournment of the Finance and Operations Committee meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.